Sacramento, California. An Uber driver picks up a passenger, a girl in a short skirt. She looked like she was about 12 years old. And that, the story goes, was the first sign that something was off, he would later tell police. By the end of the story, they get out of the car at a hotel, but the Uber driver could tell that a business transaction of some kind had taken place. And to him, it did not feel like a good one. That is where we bring in Brandy Urban and Brandon Feller, the United Way of Delaware County. They coordinate the Delaware County Against Human Trafficking Coalition. Those two words are important to this segment. Human trafficking. We need to do something about it here in Ohio. Brandon and Brandy, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, human trafficking, what is it? What do we need to know about it? And does it happen in Delaware County?
Well, human trafficking is using force, fraud, or coercion to manipulate somebody to do an act that they otherwise would not do, whether that's sex or work in a situation that they are not being treated fairly, which is known as labor trafficking. And so the three common elements there that are very important, especially as it relates to the law, is force, fraud, or coercion. And I think when we think of human trafficking, we often zero in on force. We think about forceful abduction, but often what we see is that it's a form of mental manipulation, fraud, or coercion, or manipulating someone's weakness to take advantage of them in a particular situation. And yes, it does happen in Delaware County and actually all across the state. And in fact, according to the Polaris Project, a national organization working on human trafficking, it's actually reported in active cases in every state in our country. It looks different in every situation, in every state, every county. In our situation in Delaware County, it's a little less obvious. It's not necessarily street prostitution, but there are online ads on Craigslist, back pages, things like that. Last year we had, or 2 years ago, we had a massage parlor case. It was very high profile. So we know that it is happening, and we are serving clients. And so that we know that that's a situation in Delaware County and also all of our surrounding counties.
And Brandy, I want to go back to this story that I opened up this segment with. This Uber driver, before we started talking here, you were talking about how the Uber driver really took some really good action there. Will you describe that?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's what we're talking about this month. It's Human Trafficking Awareness Month in January, and we're just trying to get people to understand what is it, and then we all have a role in reporting it. And noticing some of those red flags. You know, we want to encourage everyone to go to the PolarisProject.org. That's the national NGO, looks over all the research, helps out survivors and victims. They have a national human trafficking resource hotline, 1-888-3737-888. You call there, and maybe you've seen something that makes you uneasy. But it's everyday citizens getting educated on what it looks like, that it's everywhere, and it's covert. It's not going to come at you. And the person may not see themselves as a victim, but you start to notice some of those things.
Okay. Every situation starts out as something small, something tiny, and usually grows into something much, much bigger. And so how then does human trafficking start? What's one way?
Well, I think one thing that we see, unfortunately, very common is sex abuse in the home. And it's a situation where somebody learns that they're not to be in control of their own body at unfortunately a very, very early age. And as that manifests as they get older, that's a vulnerability that somebody who has very nefarious intentions can prey upon and utilize that to twist the situation into a sex trafficking situation. It may be an addiction. It may be some other situation, but it's definitely some type of vulnerability that somebody's using to manipulate.
Manipulation is the tack that then gets someone into that vicious cycle of indentured servitude.
Well, it can be a combination. We see that often, but so there are some terms here. There's Romeo pimp, right? And so that's somebody who shares love, takes care of you. I'm going to provide the things that you need. Let's go shopping. Let's get your hair done. I'm somebody that you can trust. I'm kind of an easy touch. I'm not a hard, forceful person. I'm here on your side. You know, that's the Romeo pimp. There's guerrilla pimp, who is more of the force and violence approach. And so you see, in various situations, you see both or a combination of tactics that maybe switch back and forth depending on the situation.
And in this particular story of the Uber driver in Sacramento, two women. Brandy, how does a young girl find herself in the clutches of two women who are exploiting her?
That's a great question. So, you know, when I'm talking to groups, I always say, you know, who wasn't vulnerable as a teenage girl in middle school or high school. We want to be loved. We want to be accepted. So, when you're not getting that and you find it in another place that maybe isn't the best situation, circumstances, and that relationship still maybe is, like Brandon was talking about, is built upon, oh, I care about you. You're going to be okay. I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to provide you the security you've never had before. And I'm going to provide for you a safe place. You can stay with me. That all these things that we know to be what Maslow's hierarchy of need are being met from this person that maybe is going to expose me to some things later on, and I didn't realize that. So it's built real slowly. There's a real long grooming process with a lot of these people, and they think sometimes that that's my boyfriend. They don't always think of themselves as the victim. It's a really hard realization, but they do know that, takes victims, several times to get help. It's just like domestic violence victims. It's just like alcoholism. It takes several times to come around to getting that help. So the more that we all can reach out and notice that and start to build our girls early up, right, to have safe, secure environments as a community, that's going to be helpful.
And what are you guys doing in Delaware County? What are some of the initiatives you are taking at the United Way to reach out and to help build awareness that this happens and help someone develop the mental tools to recognize that someone may be a victim of human trafficking?
So our coalition incorporates all facets of the community. We've got community members, we've got law enforcement, courts, we have social services that deal directly with survivors and victims, all working together to educate, provide awareness, and then give trauma-informed care to our survivors, make sure that they're okay once they're identified when they need help. The coalition as a whole, we do awareness activities, education, lots of trainings. So if you just want to understand what human trafficking is, we offer like a couple-hour training, and you can get those trainings on the Ohio Human Trafficking Task Force website. You can go to Polaris Project and get an hour if you don't want to come to us. We do a lot of outreach. Our faith community puts on a faith summit every year to reach out to that community that has a really big influence in a lot of counties. So
yeah, I think also our regular United Way programs and services that we offer in the community are a big bonus in terms of addressing this issue early on. It may not be a human trafficking program, but it's a mentorship program. It's working with kids after school. It's building self-esteem. It's identifying those challenges and dealing with them up front and early so that somebody is not vulnerable to trafficking or being abused or manipulated later on in life.
I'll tell you, this is happening across the state. There's 23 coalitions that are coordinated by the Ohio Human Trafficking Task Force. They're in Central Ohio. They're in Cincinnati. They're up in Cleveland. We're all communicating with one another, talking about best practices and strategies to make sure our communities are informed, they're educated, and our survivors are taken care of.
In closing, is there anything that you would like the public, the listening public, to know out there?
I think it's get educated, understand the issue, and be aware, be vigilant. Know what human trafficking is and know what to do if you spot or suspect something. We see a lot of times somebody will say, I think something's not right, but I don't know what to do. We're conditioned to not get involved. I think that's kind of an American thing. We don't want to get involved in somebody else's business. That's somebody else's problem. I don't really know what's going on there. But if something doesn't look right, tell somebody, right? Call the police, call the National Human Trafficking Hotline, report it. Get involved because you may just be saving a life.
What's the number?
The number is 1-888-373-7888. And there's also a number you can text, and that is Be Free, and that's 233-733.
Brandy Urban and Brandon Feller from the United Way of Delaware County. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.